you seen these beautiful papers? This is the artwork of Judy from JADESMiXEdMediaArt on Etsy, and wouldn't these be just perfect for a bit of paper doodling? What do you think? I have 3 different paper doodles for you today to give you some more ideas and inspiration to help you play some more with your own paper mark making. And I'm going to change it up a little bit with the shapes and even the paper that I'm sticking it down to. So let's just get started. Now, so far in the paper doodling that I have shared with you, I've been using random pieces of painted paper that, well, I've painted them myself, and they've generally been left over from other projects. I mean, this kind of stuff tends to collect, doesn't it? I'm sure we've all got quite a lot of it. I know I have. But I haven't tried using something as visually interesting as this, with its mix of brush strokes, and there's lots of colour and the doodles that are already part of the design, and then there's some digital art that Judy puts in there as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how, starting with a piece that's already really rich, how does that work with a paper doodle? And my first piece with Judy's lovely papers, it's kind of going to be a warm-up one for me to just get me in the flow. And I'm trying a bit of a semicircle zigzag cutting to change things up a little bit. And this is a bit of a mind bender because you don't want to be accidentally cutting off the zigzag into single curves. You need it to sort of stay intact. And you want to keep them connected, but if you do it right, then you should end up with a couple of really interesting shapes. It's a little like those spirals that I made last week, if you remember those. And I cut that one in such a way that I actually ended up with 2 spirals. So it's the similar sort of thing. I know that you're only meant to cut one item at a time when you're doing your paper doodling, but you know, sometimes you can't help it, and you don't have to use both shapes, but in this case I'm going to use both of these shapes. Now, if you've forgotten how to do paper doodles, you haven't done it yet, or you haven't even seen the video yet, then do go back to my first paper doodle video where I talk you through the whole technique. And I've linked up that video in the cards and also in the description. Hopefully too, I've put it as a pinned comment below the videos by now as well, so check that out too. And remember, this is an ordinary paper collage. It's paper collage with conviction. And that's what makes it a paper doodle. I really like that, and I'm trying to make it catch on. I might have to put it on a t-shirt, what do you think? Or maybe make it into a tote. We can be the Paper Doodlers Club. And I really love how these zigzag shapes work, and all that extra detail that Judy's paper has already got on it. And it just really works really nicely, doesn't it? So this is kind of like a collaborative piece, isn't it, don't you think? So Judy, do give us a wave in the comments, and I'll make sure that I also link to Judy's Etsy store so you can find her lovely papers. And I think I'll make good use of some of the marks that are already on the paper and just cut them out as a whole piece. So for instance, those little pink rectangles, they're quite cute. So I think what I might do is I'll cut those out, but I don't want to just cut them out as pink rectangles. So I'm going to give them a little bit of a border, which means there's a little bit of yellow in there as well, and red in some places. And I really love how the hot and cold colour combining works on this piece. Okay, so for piece number 2, I want to try using some very thin strips, as if I was sort of drawing a pen line. But because they do come from such visually interesting papers, it's going to be a really unique textured line. So I'm going to keep these thin, but I will vary up the lengths as well, and there will be some variation in the thickness, but they won't be too thick. And it's almost like, you know those pencils that have the different colours in one lead, and you draw with it, and as you're drawing it sort of changes colour, a different colour shows up on the page. It's almost like that in a way, isn't it? So my first thought with this one was, once I'd put those lines down, was to add a circle, but you know what, I overuse the circle, and sometimes I need to sort of break out of my circles and do something else. So I'm going to do something different. I'm going to turn my circle into a rounded rectangle instead and see how that works. It's like instant retro when you round a rectangle, isn't it? And I have all these leftover bits from cutting out that circle, and then when the circle went through its identity crisis and turned into a rounded rectangle, I think I'll actually use those up because they're already quite interesting shapes. So let's see how a bit of trimming can turn them into something usable to add to my paper doodling here. And you might as well take advantage of these odd bits of leftover shapes that you get. And that's what can add a unique feel for your paper doodles over other style of doodling where you might be using a pen or a brush. Paper doodling gives you some different types of opportunities, doesn't it, for your mark making? It's like a rounded rectangle exploding in slow motion, or maybe it's like vibrations or waves moving out from a single point. Oh, hold on, what about a retro abstract face? There's two different eye shapes there that I can see, and then a little sort of rounded rectangle button nose. And I think this abstract person's even smiling. Yeah, I think I like it better this way up actually, so I think this is the way that this piece should be seen. Now, whilst working on that last piece, a thought crossed my mind. I wanted to change up the background colour, and I think Judy's bright papers will work wonderfully on a dark surface, so I'm going to use some black cardstock for my next paper doodle. And I really liked how this one started. Then I think it kind of went a bit adrift and I overworked it, but I think I managed to save it again nearer to the end. But have a watch and see what you think. Don't the colours look amazing on that black background? So rich. Now I think I've talked about what papers you can use to make your paper doodles in my other videos and of course today, but we haven't yet chatted about the actual backgrounds to work on. And you've got as many options as you have the types of papers you could use. So you can totally use paper backgrounds like I've been doing, and I think that it was for me more of a continuation of my daily diary doodles. That uses an old paper diary where I use pen, pencil and ink for that. And the paper is a kind of creamy colour, so using an off-white or a white mixed media paper wasn't like a giant leap. And you can see it can make some very striking paper doodle pieces. But yeah, you can also change that up too and go for block colour like a coloured cardstock. You can paper doodle on a painted surface, something that's already got some different colours and different textures on it, and use it as an extra piece of visual interest for maybe an art journal or a canvas. And paper doodles would be wonderful for things like card making. You can also use them as journal covers or even over ordinary collage. If you can find a glue that will stick paper to the surface that you want to use, be it paper, paint, canvas, wood, metal, plastic, then you can pretty much paper doodle anywhere and on anything. So have a think about that, and I can't wait to see your paper doodles break into the wild. So if you do go 3D or off the page, or you just stick to your 2D paper, then I would love to see it. So do share and link up to me in Instagram or tag me to your videos here on YouTube or elsewhere so that I can come and have a look and visit and see your paper doodle goodness. And all of my social media links are in the description. And some of you have already been doing this and sharing your paper doodle results with me, and they have been amazing. So thank you so much for doing that. So what do you think about black? Very striking, isn't it? And the colours, they just really do zing from that page. So I'm pleased I swapped it up a little bit and went for this very strong colour background to work on. I think the two just work very well together. Now when I turned this piece around, I could see another face there, just like in that second piece. And to me, it looks like an abstract face with this enormous gravity-defying headdress. And as you see, I mean, I didn't set out to do that. I didn't plan it, it just kind of happened. But I think I'll go with that, and I'll keep this piece this way up, even though I built it in the other way up. 3 very different paper doodle pieces using Judy's lovely paper. So do go over and say hello to her at her Etsy shop. And I think using papers like this just adds a really sort of immediate richness for one thing, lots of different sort of looks to it. And because you didn't make it yourself, there's just a whole new sort of range of different discoveries that you can make with it. And the other tip that I think we learnt from this video at least is that check the orientation of your piece and move it around. So once you've done it, don't think that you have to keep it in the way that you made it. You can just turn it around and see if you prefer a different orientation of it. Now I have plenty more art videos for you to binge on, so have some arty fun and I will see you on these videos next.